Welcome everyone to ANC 34G's regular meeting on the second Monday of May. We are meeting virtually once again, as we have been for more than a year. As everyone is now well aware, we have the commissioners with audio and video throughout the meeting, and we will recognize attendees and give them audio and video when it's an appropriate time in the meeting. We're doing this now, and we're also requiring registration because we've had some problems with Zoom bombers in a meeting in the past. And so we're trying to avoid that and keep our meeting as civil and straightforward as possible. During the meeting, if anybody has any questions, please put them in the Q&A. And if you have any comments, please put them in the chat so we can just differentiate between them. I'm Randy Speck. I'm the chair of ANC 34G, and I represent the single member district that is ANC 34G 03. And that's basically the area between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch. And so we'll begin then by introducing the other commissioners. Chaz?
Sure, I'm Chaz Cadwell. I'm the commissioner from single member district 7, which is basically bounded by Reno Road, Military Road, Nebraska, and on the east by a little piece of Nevada, the southwest part of the ANC.
Michael?
I'm glad we finally gotten here to tonight.
I'm Michael Zeldin. I represent 34G04, which is essentially Lafayette, bounded by Broad Branch in Utah and western between Northampton and Tennyson, 33rd Street, 32nd Street, that area.
And Connie?
Good evening. I'm Connie Chang. I'm the commissioner for single member district 05, and that's bounded by the east side of Connecticut, where the Chevy Chase Library and Community Center is, western down Broad Branch Road with the tail between Nevada and Chevy Chase Parkway down to Jocelyn. Good evening.
And Lisa?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Gore. I'm the commissioner for ANC 34G01, which serves Hawthorne and portions of Barnaby Wood. My single member district runs Western Avenue, past Pinehurst Circle, down Beach, kind of up past the tributary, and over and up along Oregon Avenue. Thanks for coming.
Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter Gosselin. I represent District 6, which is the part of the community on the west side of Connecticut back to 41st, from Western Avenue and the Chevy Chase Circle to Military with a peninsula of the east to Chevy Chase Parkway between Kanawha and Legation. Welcome.
And John?
I'm John Higgins. I represent single member district 02, which extends from Military Road on the south to near Aberfoyle on the north, and between Oregon on the east and Utah on the west.
Thank you. We have all 7 commissioners here tonight, and so we can conduct business. The first order of business is to adopt our agenda. The agenda has been posted on our website and on the various listservs and other social media in the community. Are there any modifications or changes to the agenda? All those in favor of adopting the agenda then? 7-0. And the agenda tonight, as everyone is, I'm sure aware, focuses primarily on the small area plan, the draft small area plan that has been prepared by the Office of Planning. And we'll be getting to that after just one other, well, first of all, the announcements that we typically have, and then one other piece of business that is time sensitive and has to be done tonight. So we'll begin then with the commissioner announcements, and I have 3 short announcements. The first is that the Department of Small and Local Business Development's Robust Retail Citywide Grant is now open. The grants are for licensed brick and mortar retail locations in the district and will be awarded through a lottery for all eligible applications. There will be 78 grants for up to $7,500 each. Those who received awards last year are not eligible, however. And the request for application can be found on the department's website, and I put that website in the chat. I think it's there. Let me make sure. Yes. The deadline to apply is June 8th at 2 p.m. and questions related to grant requirements may be sent to DC Main Streets at dc.gov. Second announcement is the proposed military road trail, and this was mentioned several months ago, and maybe even more than a year ago, in a meeting when we had the National Park Service attend our meeting. And they are going to be hosting a virtual meeting in partnership with DDOT on May 24th from 6:30 to 7:30 to present a proposed pedestrian and bicycle trail study along Military Road within Rock Creek Park. The project will provide a safe and efficient east-west pedestrian and bicycle connection through Rock Creek Park that will function for all users. The proposed connection will be from Oregon Avenue Northwest to 16th Street Northwest and will provide connections to the existing trail network within the park. And the link for joining that meeting is posted in the chat. And finally, we got a notice from DDOT that they are expecting to repave Connecticut Avenue between Nebraska Avenue and Chevy Chase Circle between now and May 20th, weather permitting. So that, because that's prime thoroughfare through our ANC, I thought everyone should be aware of that. It's likely to happen in the next couple of weeks. Okay, other commissioner announcements? Michael.
So I posted on the Chevy Chase listserv a notice that the Encore program, the district's Encore program, which engages and supports DC creative community by funding creative events, is now open and available for applications. And there are information sessions set up. You can go to theEncoreDC.com to find out about them, and the information sessions are May 11th at 12 noon and 5 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Just to answer a question that's been posted in the Q&A, have all the local businesses been made aware of these small business grants and how to apply? The answer is yes. The Chevy Chase Main Street has reached out to all the businesses, and they are also going to come to our meeting on May 23rd, and we'll explain that even further and exactly how they're reaching out to the local businesses to make sure that they can apply for this grant. Okay, any other commissioner announcements? I see Jerry Mallett says that he can't see anything in the chat. Let me see if I can repost it.
Yeah, I think if you post it before the meeting begins, it doesn't show up again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. Okay, and while I'm at it, let me also repost in the chat the link to the draft resolutions for the small area plan. If people want to look at that as well. Okay, any other commissioner announcements?
I was just going to make a very quick announcement.
Yes.
That I'm trying to work with Amir, who I don't know if he's going to be here to speak, but we're trying to work across ANCs on stormwater management issues. There are homes here, certainly in my district, where the backyards are flooded over. It's been going on for years. And I'd like for the city to get a handle on how many homes truly are affected. So it's like a Ward 3 kind of effort. It just began last week when Commissioner Gosselin and I did a walkthrough of Chair Chase Playground. I was talking to Amir at that point and brought this issue up. And so if there are neighbors here on tonight's call, please reach out to me if you can to let me know if you are experiencing those difficulties. Then I'm going to talk to the city to see how we can try to get a handle on how many homes truly are affected and what they really can do and if they would do anything at all. So it's DDOT, DOEE, and the Deputy Mayor's Office of Operations, trying to get them involved first, and it's across ANCs. Thanks.
Okay, any other announcements? Emir is not here tonight, but he did send me a list of some announcements. And if it's okay with commissioners, I'll just read those announcements that this is from the mayor's office. Mayor Bowser and Chief Conti announced the Violent Crime Impact Team, a collaboration effort between local and federal partners to remove illegal firearms from the community and apprehend armed criminals. The focus of this team is to reduce violent crime by using more intelligence-driven operations and enhance our investigative abilities through federal agency partnerships. This is a joint partnership between the district, the FBI, ATF, and the Drug Enforcement Agency. The second announcement that Emir left was Mayor Bowser and DEMPED, the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, launched the Small Medium Business Growth Fund to retain and expand district-based small businesses by supporting capital improvements, large equipment purchasing, and technological enhancements in the industrial, retail, professional services, and commercial business industries. This is targeted at new and existing businesses that are headquartered in the district and that generate less than $5 million in annual revenue. And finally, Mayor Bowser and Deputy Mayor Paul King announced that 43 nonprofit youth serving organizations have been awarded a total of $3.57 million in grants for the Summer Strong 2022 grant competitions from the Office of Out of School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes. These funds will support more than 2,700 young people ages 5 to 18 with access to summer programming. Okay, does anyone have any of the attendees have an announcement, community announcement they'd like to make? If so, please raise your hand so we can recognize you.
Randy, did you see the one question in the QA regarding the local businesses?
Yes, I did answer that.
Okay, sorry, thanks.
Okay, I think that's all of the announcements then, and we can move to the business of the evening. The first item is a discussion and possible vote on a BZ application for Josh and Allison Downing at 6101 29th Street Northwest for a special exception to the lot coverage requirements in order to build an addition. And this is in Higgins single member district. So I'm going to turn this over to John. And
Yes,
we need to elevate, I think, I don't know who's going to appear for them, Josh or Allison.
I
Down.
think it's Josh, and I think they have their architect.
Okay.
He can clarify that. This is a relatively routine extension. They have a small kitchen, which they're going to expand outward to their backyard. And it involves going over, extending beyond the basement entrance from the rear. So I think that, I don't think there's anything particularly controversial about the expansion. I think the egress from the basement stairs should be addressed, but I think that's pretty much covered by turning it in a different direction, but they will clarify that. And for the record, it's Josh, J-O-S-H Dunning, D-U-N-N-I-N-G. So if we can elevate Josh and he can explain his situation.
Josh, could you raise your, if you're here, because I don't see your name on the list.
He's a panelist.
He's panelist already. Okay. I'm 2 steps
Evening.
behind you, Lisa. Thank
Can you
you.
hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Great. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Mr. Higgins. What I'd like to do is just quick background, share my screen, show you the plans of our lot, our one-story addition, and then see what questions you have and ask for your support as we go to the BZA meeting, which is the 26th of May. I live at 6101 29th Street. We're looking to expand a 1-story in the backward kitchen, as Mr. Higgins said. So let me, and our architects and the design teams here, if there are any questions I don't know the answer to, happy to answer anything you have a question about. Let me share.
Josh,
Yes.
can you have your design team raise their hand so I could promote them?
Yes, Stephen and Bill, please do.
I got Stephen, thank you. Is that Bill Morris?
That's right.
Okay.
All right, let me make my screen a little bigger. Okay, just holler if you can't see the screen here, but this is our homes at the corner of 29th Street and Rittenhouse. It's a small triangular shaped lot, and the original home already is touching the property line on a couple of points. The section here, and let me zoom in a little, in the blue is where we want to add. It's a 6 feet addition on the first floor to expand our kitchen. And then there will be stairs going out into the backyard. And then the stairs here are the stairs coming up from the basement exit. The basement exit is beneath the current kitchen. And I think let me go a couple of pages down. I think this is a current view of the back of our home, the door to the kitchen, and there's an iron landing and stairs. And let me go ahead to the view after. This is probably the best view here. So it is this section here that is in the lighter color we're adding over the exit to the basement, and then stairs exiting out from the 6 feet here coming out. So I don't think if Stephen or Bill have anything to add. I think the need for the BZA application was based on the percentage of the lot the building occupies. And so we'd like to go above the amount allotted, which would be adding this space here.
How much is square feet is that extra?
I guess it's a 6 feet by, I think it's 12 feet. So,
And what's the percentage lot coverage?
that's a good question. Stephen, do you have those exact percentages?
I do. It's actually on the second page, CSO2. So lot occupancy currently is 1,223 square feet, which is 43.9%. And we're adding approximately 100 square feet, a little under 100 square feet, increasing that to 47%.
And the zoning regulation, it limits it to 40%. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right.
So it's a non-conforming condition,
right,
initially, and that's why we needed to go to BZA.
And Josh, I believe you filed some statements from your neighbors about their reaction to your proposal.
That's right. A couple of neighbors that our immediate neighbor next door, we're on the corner, so we have one immediate neighbor, and then our neighbors across the street that face the addition. All our neighbors are supportive and didn't have any questions about it affecting them or their homes or their properties.
Okay, any questions by commissioners?
How long is this construction supposed to take from start to finish?
Well, we're hoping for 4 months. We're getting a couple of different quotes from between 3 and 4 months from contractors. So we're counting on the higher end as construction usually goes, but 4 months would be ideal.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Josh. You want to take your shared screen down?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, John, you want to make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion on behalf of the Dunnings that this BCA application be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Josh and Stephen, for your presentations.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're on to the main event. We're
Randy,
going
you
to-
have to change Josh back to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to no longer co-host, right?
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
Got it.
Okay. We have, as everyone is aware, I'm sure, we have all been looking at the draft small area plan that the Office of Planning has proposed. They proposed it in March, is that correct? I think March 13th or something like
March
that.
14th, they released the draft.
And that was the culmination really of more than a year's worth of effort by the Office of Planning and cooperation with a lot of the community groups and the ANC in particular. And the ANC has been very involved in that process. And as everyone is aware too, we've had some concerns about the process, but now we have a draft small area plan and we're ready to proceed with it. Just a word about the timing of the resolution that we are considering. The deadline for comments, including the comments from the ANC, is May 13th. And this is an extension from what we originally, what the Office of Planning originally proposed. They proposed a 30-day comment period, and at our request, they've extended it to 60 days. And that expires on May 13th. So if we want the Office of Planning to consider our views, we have to submit a resolution with our comments by May 13th. And the advantage of being able to do that is that it carries great weight. A resolution by the commission, by the full commission, is entitled to great weight. Individual commissioners can submit their own comments, but those comments are not entitled to great weight and would be treated like any other community members' comments. Thus, unless we adopt a resolution tonight, we will not have an opportunity to give the Office of Planning our comments, and our comments will not be entitled to great weight. So that's what we're doing tonight, and we have to really make a decision tonight. We can't postpone the decision further. Commissioner Gosselin has done a really amazing job in researching the details of the small area plan, talking with lawyers and experts, meeting with the community, and drafting details for a possible commission resolution. And he has really helped all of us, I think, to understand the issues better and to focus our thinking about them. Peter's draft, which all of the commissioners have commented on and contributed to, has been posted on our website, and everyone's had an opportunity to look at it for about a week. The commissioners have also reviewed a shorter, less detailed draft that we may consider as an alternative. But we're going to begin with Peter's draft that, again, as I mentioned, has been the subject of a lot of comments from all the commissioners. And we've also received lots of comments from the community, either through emails to us or comments on the Chevy Chase Community Listserv or telephone calls or any other way. So we've heard a lot of people talking about the draft resolution that we prepared. So I'm going to begin with Peter, and he can introduce it, and then we'll have a commission discussion about it and decide how to proceed at that point. Peter?
Thank you, Randy, and thank you for the kind words. My pitch to the commissioners tonight is to replace the kind words with your votes. There are 2 resolutions that you have before you, and I think that the one I've drafted, worked on over 8 weeks and drafted intensively for 10 days will serve the purpose better. Let me set it up this way. This commission has only a few things, actually really only one thing to give in return for getting things that it wants in the small area plan for the community's future, and from various city bodies like the zoning commission. And that is the approval or not of the draft small area plan. In part, we find ourselves in this situation because more than 2 years ago, in asking for a small area plan for Chevy Chase, the commission gave its approval for increasing density along Connecticut Avenue, which is the first step in order to boost zoning for new development. Now, this is different than other small area plans that are either underway or almost complete in Washington, such as the Congress Heights small area plan, where the community is getting to look at pictures of various density increases and ones that say if you went to sort of this density increase, which would comport with a zoning designation of this, would look like so-and-so, and so on and so forth. We don't have that option. All we can do is approve or disapprove in some forms the plan that we have before us. Given that, it seems to me that we should be very specific in our asks. And there are other reasons to be specific. When we started this process, Randy and I agreed that, that is, when we started looking at the draft plan, Randy and I agreed that the plan now released had to be what we focused on. But, and that, you know, the process, which I have been a critic of, is sort of water over the dam. But I want to just remind the commission that we had to repeatedly pass resolutions to ask for improvements in the process. And even when we made specific asks, we only got sort of half a loaf. And I just remind people of the last few. In January, instead of a full charrette over a period of time, we had a 2.5-hour design workshop. We all agreed, that is, all the commissioners agreed that the visual representations were not good. We asked for better ones, and we, at least in my eyes, didn't really get them. We got a poster session a month later that at the library, which had some new drawings, but were not good. So one reason to ask is for specifics is that it's the only thing we have to trade is approval of the small area plan. Let's get what we really want in that trade. 2 is that we've had an experience of asking for things, and when we're not really tough about them, we didn't get them. And the 3rd is this: in talking to lawyers who I've identified to all of the commissioners who we trust, they have schooled me in something that I didn't know anything about, and that is that small area plans, which in this case will be the Chevy Chase small area plan, will go into the comprehensive plan as the sort of Chevy Chase chapter. That language is the authorizing language that lets the drafters of a zoning designation either consider things or not. So it is, I have been schooled in the notion that it is very important that the language that we asked for in the small area plan, the language we asked for in our resolution tonight, be in the small area plan, needs to be specific enough, doesn't need to solve the problem totally, but needs to be specific enough that we've given to the drafters of the zone authority to consider these matters when they draft the zone. Just to give an example, that means that sort of the zoning drafters can't just say, I think all the buildings in Chevy Chase should be purple. You know, if we haven't said, if it isn't in the comp plan or in the Chevy Chase chapter of the comp plan, that we really would like all buildings to be purple. So we need to have some specificity in our resolution and ask for it in the small area plan to give the people who are going to draft this zone the authority to take up these issues. Now, look, you're going to see in the substitute that Randy drafted this morning talk about a special zoning area for our upper Connecticut Avenue commercial corridor. And you will also see a mention of various things we'd like to see in the zone. We'd like to see the zone handle, like heights and setbacks and buffers and alleys and so forth. But what you won't see is any explanation for what we'd like to see these things do. Buildings of what height, setbacks to accomplish what aim, alleys designed to function in what way. These are the sorts of things that plans usually address. And I've looked at a lot of plans, small area plans across the city and adjacent jurisdictions over the past 7 or 8 weeks, but not the Chevy Chase small area plan. And I worry that they're not sufficiently addressed in the substitute resolution to provide the very authorizing language that lets the drafters of the special zone that we are asking for in both these versions of the resolution take up the matters. So I think that the wisest course is, but let me just say, I think I have addressed these in a great deal of detail in the resolution I've helped draft. Indeed, to the extent I understand what's happened over the last 24 hours, it is the very detail that I provided that is concerning my fellow commissioners. So let me offer this. The document, as I have drafted in its full glory, has not only a resolution, but has 2 attachments. I actually think there's a logic for the 2 attachments. Attachment 1, which I tried to assemble particularly at the behest of Connie Chang, who wanted specific asks for language changes or additions to the existing SAP and specific locations where we wanted it. That is what that whole attachment addresses. Attachment 2 addresses all the bugs that I find in the plan, but that I don't think are worth holding things up over. But let me say this as a compromise. I will drop my request for those, but I think that the text of the resolution with the mention of attachment 1 and 2 of the resolution that I've helped draft serves the purpose we want to have served better than the substitute. And I ask you to vote, I ask to have it put up for a vote and move, and I ask you to vote on it.
I think
I need to have a second for that.
Yeah, in terms of proper procedure, we ask for a second. Okay, Michael gives a second. Okay.
We can discuss.
Commissioners want to discuss it? Who wants to start?
Whoa.
I'll start.
Thank you, Michael.
So there are a couple of things that I think are worth mentioning, besides thanks to Peter and Connie and Randy and Chaz for carrying the bulk of the water on this. Second, I wish it was possible that we had more time to comment and receive feedback on the resolution. I think that the OP has been arbitrary in its setting of deadlines for our community and our ANC to comment on it. I wish that were possible. Randy advises that we've gone to the well for extensions, and there's no extension that is doable. And so it is speak now or forever hold your peace. And if we hold our peace, that is to say, we oppose the small area plan as drafted, then we will essentially not be on the record in any affirmative way, which I think leaves open the gate for OP to do whatever it wants. So if we don't interpose our point of view now in some form of resolution, then I think we undermine the ability of the community to have its voice heard. I believe that the small area plan as drafted is deficient in many ways. And if we were making a straight up or down vote on the small area plan, I'd vote against it, because I don't think that it's a plan. I think it's a visionary document, and its vision is myopic at best. But we don't have that option, as I said, because we need to have our voice be heard in some way. And I think that it behooves us to submit to Office of Planning the detailed resolution that Peter has drafted. Now, I have made suggestions of language. I have about 10 or so points that I would add to embellish upon what is written. But I think that we improve the opportunity to ensure that the goals of affordable and workforce housing, which are predominant in our thinking here, as well as the desire to maintain sort of the historic nature of our community, are achieved in this resolution that Peter has drafted. For example, we articulate specifically the types of development that we want: workforce and affordable housing with options to rent to buy or to buy outright. We say specifically that we think that the small area planning process must consider the possibility of designating as minimum the west side of Connecticut Avenue as a historic district to preserve the culture of our and the feel of our community. So I think that we're trying our best in this resolution to accommodate the disparate views that we have received. Now, I can say, as a personal matter, I've received many emails, many of which say, "Dear Commissioner, thank you so much for your hard work, and here is my input," to which I try to say thank you in response, and we'll take account of it. Others are quite accusatory, saying that if you support this, you are an XYZ, or if you don't support this, you are an XYZ. Those are inappropriate, and I would hope that people would restrain themselves, as we are all doing the best we can, and remind you that we are all volunteers here working 25 or 30 hours a week in an effort to represent our community. So with all this, in sum, I would vote against the small area plan if it was an up or down vote. It's not. I think that we are best served by giving OP a very detailed list of the things that we think are imperative to protect our community and to provide the maximum extent possible affordable housing in our community. So I support Peter's resolution. And I would say, Peter, though I have some wordsmithing, as you know, I sent you at 2:50 in the morning my comments on this, just to point to the community to say at 2:50 in the morning, I'm still working on this draft resolution. I have those, and they're non-substantive in many respects. They're more to give additional emphasis to the things that I think are worth emphasizing. So they're changes in tone and structure, but not you said yes and I said no, and we therefore need to change it. So for example, I have a paragraph that would read, perhaps the greatest shortcoming of the CCSAP is its failure to articulate at a granular level how it intends to implement and enforce the various recommendations and to further ensure that the recommendations be made mandatory for all developments in the covered area. This resolution endeavors to begin to articulate affordable housing mandates and requirements, including number and size of affordable units, and an imperative that affordable housing and workforce housing units have a rent to buy and outright purchase option. The commission recognizes that much work needs to be done and the requirements and require that a standing committee be established at which we have a seat at the table with OP and community members. And I would add that I received an email tonight, which I thought was instructive. And it suggested that when we use the word community, that we make sure that the community is defined as residents in the affected area. That is those people who are most close to where the development is taking place, to make sure that their voice in particular is heard, in the same way that we were cognizant of the way in which we wanted to make sure as best we could that those closest to ECC had a strong voice in the ECC Marais conflagration. So that's what I'll say for now.
Can I just say thank you? I'm a little surprised, though I've stayed up very late for a lot of nights. I wasn't up at 2:50, and in the rush of things since about 6:30 this morning, I didn't see him. But I'm very grateful for the comments.
Next time at 2:50, I'll call you instead of just.
Okay, other commissioners have comments? John?
This is going to be a tough call in light of all I have learned from Peter over the past couple of months, and Connie as well. But in light of many of the proposed changes that we have had to the first draft, I found them to be somewhat confusing and contradictory. So we're all praying for a silver bullet that will solve all this stuff. I think Randy's approach to back off a little bit and simplify has significant merit. The stumbling block that I see is the idea of whether this is the last bite at the apple we will have. And Peter and I have discussed this in emails, and we've discussed it in person, and we come down on little different perceptions of this. I discovered the whole form-based zoning issue with Chaz's group when they had a webinar on this, and there were 3 people in that panel, and the whole form, and who especially Ellen McCarthy, who described the form-based plan zoning situation. That was new to me. I've mentioned it several times. I'm not necessarily an evangelist for it, but I think it's an interesting option. And as a result of that, I think that we will have more than one bite at the apple. As I understand it, form-based, and this also comes from Peter, and I do agree that on page 59 of the report, the last paragraph, OP itself opens the door to a special zone approach to development in our community. And the way I understand that works is that the special zone is created. That's number one. And we have put this as our priority for us. We've taken that ball and we're running with it, such that the special zone mechanism allows our community to be largely self-determined in zoning matters. It's a very neat approach in terms of granular grassroots participation in our development. So, and as I understand that process, it's a 2-step process. First, we get OP to recognize and insert in the comprehensive plan, because it's all going to go into the comprehensive plan, the notion that we could have a special zone a zone overlay, an NC zone. They're different nomenclature, but basically it allows you to kind of govern yourselves for various purposes. You have to have a little bit of a charter or a purpose stated for it, but it's been done many times in the city. St. E's is one of them. And I've looked at that application extensively. That was somewhat different from our neighborhood, but the process was similar. So at any rate, if we have a special zone of whatever stripe is appropriate, we then have a mechanism for contributing to that. I absolutely agree with Peter that in the public engagement process associated with this, we have to make it very clear that our neighborhood will not necessarily be dictated to by anyone, that this will be a collaborative process in which we will get down into the real details that, you know, lot 5 can only have a setback of 3.5 feet or whatever it is. Those specifications come in the second step. First, we get the zone approach approved, and then we also simultaneously with that create a mechanism for continuous public engagement. I favor doing that through the ANC, which we can do with the proposed standing committee. It could be a steering committee, as they did with the St. E's project. But at any rate, those community engagement mechanisms are the authorizing body. And Peter, I fiddled with a little language up until coming on the air to insert something in Randy's, which I think would answer your question about making sure the authorization is there. So at any rate, that process then goes on in some very significant detail, so that all the things that we have discovered and raised in this process are not going to be shelved. We're going to be ahead of the game to some degree, because we have explored this to the nth degree on upzoning and housing and affordable housing and formulas and so forth. We've got a lot of material that we could put into a special zone matrix. So I'm not quite as anxious about losing out in the future, that we won't have any say. And I'm particularly intrigued by this concept. So I think we can simplify and, you know, to some degree, simplify the original one, which, as I mentioned, has a lot of conflicting elements to it from all of us, and perhaps with, you know, people who've been writing into the ANC in various positions, and basically embrace the SAP that OP has done. That's a major achievement. That's a major achievement that this methodology, including their zoning proposal, has the endorsement and recognition of the key agency in the government. We got another couple steps to go, but I think the task force of 2019, the resolution of 2020, and what Connie and Peter have done, it's been a long slog, and I admire them. But I think, you know, I don't think this is the end of the game. I think this is kind of still at the beginning of the game, and we can fashion a way in which we're going to be in this game at toe-to-toe, if need be, with OP. So I would rather step back a little bit, not get too confused by all the conflicting things in our resolution, which would be extremely difficult to unwind before May 13th, and take a hard look at Randy's more simplified approach. So that's where I stand. I don't know if there's anyone in the audience who could contribute to that in terms of our understanding of the zoning process. I've talked to a legal person. I think, you know, Peter and I maybe have some of the same sources, and we're coming out with different positions. But this will give us some time, I think, to approach this in a more, I should say, more disciplined way. So, you know, what Connie and Peter have done has been amazing. It has, and I hope we can find some way to collaborate and reconcile this among ourselves.
Oh, I'm sorry, John, what is your bottom line?
Bottom line is, one, we emphasize getting this special zone mechanism working for us within our SAP. Second is that in conformity with, in alliance with that, we have a continuing mechanism for governance and for a mechanism in which we are, or we have the authority to contribute to the actual details of the zoning regulation draft. If we get those, if we get those two things, we're more than at second base. We're halfway home from third. So
And don't
we should
they,
emphasize those.
and John, do they not reside in Peter's and Connie's resolution? Or if they do not
Well,
reside there with sufficient specificity, should we not just add them to articulate what you said to that?
well, we've been at this for 10 days of hard exchanges, and we're still not reconciled on some of these issues. And we have red lines going all over the place. And it's not a simple document to comprehend at this point. And I think, you know, for the public and maybe even for OP. So I think because of the situation we're in, if we can emphasize these two issues, a zoning that's customized to Livingston to Chevy Chase, that's pretty good material to deal with. And also a guaranteed engagement input mechanism, the ANC or steering committee, you know, we're right in there. So I don't know if our current edition has, you know, has the clarity that's needed at this point because of all of those differences and contributions and edits and take this in and put this out kind of thing. I think we can step back. I think we can simplify it. I think we can emphasize in a more simplified approach to OP. This is what we are. This is where we are. This is what we want. We're taking your idea on page 59 and we're going to run with it. And we're going to represent ourselves in a major league way throughout the process.
Peter, let's see if Lisa or Connie or Chaz have something to say too, and then hear from them first. Lisa?
You know, I originally tried to be a little hands-off in this situation for various obvious reasons. And I do think that the simplified approach to this that we discussed this afternoon and I had in detailed conversation with Randy, for me is the best way to go. And I think the best way to go for the ANC. We know that this is not a perfect process. We're not going to get everything that we want out of this SAP, but I think John's comments are reflected in a simplified resolution done by Randy. I think our attachments, and I appreciate, Peter, the offer to forego attachments 1 and 2, but I think the resolution as drafted is a little bit more than I would like to see in terms of process with SAP, with Office of Planning. I see a lot of comments in the chat as well regarding the race recommendation. So that's the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee. We will get to those comments. So please, you know, just keep your patience with that. We'll specifically address that recommendation and those comments. But given that, I don't have too much more to say on this particular resolution.
Chaz or Connie, do you have anything to say before we go back to Peter?
Yeah, I was just going to add that we spent a lot of time looking over some of these ideas that Peter had to, in some ways, constrain development, okay, to limit height. And the more I examined it, the more I understood it, the less it made sense to me. I think it makes a lot of confusing points. I think that's where John is saying it's contradictory, which is we both want affordable housing, workforce housing, deeply affordable housing. Yet, you know, we're going to constrain the heights without, and we know, we've heard so many people tell us every parcel, every development project, there's economics involved. So, you know, I think the principles are there in the CCSAP. about bringing in vouchers, bringing in community land trust, bringing in nonprofit developers and so forth. I think it's there. And I think that the more we worked on the resolution draft that we put out last week, the less clear it became. And it just became gargantuan. I mean, I got lost in it. It took Michael till 2:50 in the morning because it was a lot to wade through. And I think a simplified version allows the biggest points to be brought right up front. Okay, what is it that we agree with and what things that we want to work on? And I am in strong agreement with John that with this overlay for a use of form-based code, that provides much more detail, and it goes beyond just height. It goes into form, actual building form. And I think that's what we want. And I think that we want to be in conversation. So the plan, Michael originally said it's a visionary document. That is exactly what it is. I think the term small area plan is unfortunate because it is not a plan that we in other realms of our lives we think of. It is a visionary document. It's putting forth what we hope to see and being able to then work on those things. So a lot of the words that we see in the recommendation tables throughout the report is about encourage. It is about study. It's to do more things because that is what we heard the community say. That's something that we as a commission have worked on for a few years. We have a history that I'm not that proud of, knowing more and more about it, and that we don't have a lot of diverse housing options or diversity in other ways. And for us to be able to gain that, and it's pretty clear in the draft CCAC SAP, that is important. And I am supportive of that. So I would prefer to have us go simple. We tried the other way, and I don't think it works. So I'm supportive of the way John has put it. I think that that's where we need to end up. And I'm glad that Lisa also agrees because she's coming in with fresh eyes. She's looking at it and going, it's not making sense. So let's make sense. Let's make it clear so that the community, ourselves, and OP understand what it is that we're most focused on and what is it that we want to achieve going forward.
Jazz?
Thank you, Randy. I've been working closely with Peter for a lot of days. I feel like I'm almost married to him at this point, as he's been working to pull together the views across this commission since our April 25th meeting. And since then, there's been a deep engagement across the commission, not just those of us who were working on the draft. Those comments and the deep engagement on this very detailed version took place, as we've noted, well into last evening and even after we went to bed. Michael, who I will note did arrive on time for this meeting, even if his comments came after we were all asleep last night. But in that draft we were working on was indeed very detailed. We had a lot of input. We heard from experts. The draft that we had as of last evening reflected a lot of compromises among our group of 7. That consensus fell apart late in the evening. And so whether we adopt this version or the short version, the Office of Planning has to give our views great weight, but at the end of the day, we are an advisory commission. They have to explain, but we don't get to dictate. So even if this version doesn't become the final resolution, it should be very, very clear to OP that there are deep community concerns about the details. The draft that Peter and the rest of us have prepared may be flawed on some detail, or there's some reason that it's not practical in someone's view. The Office of Planning gets to tell us that. They don't, they have the discretion to not listen to us on all those details. But the depth of the commission's concern reflected in this detailed work that's gone on for with intensity since our last meeting doesn't go away just because a detailed version may not be adopted here tonight. Either version of this makes it incredibly clear what the ANC's concerns and expectations are. And OP is going to move ahead, as has been noted, whether or not we vote or don't vote. So my inclination tonight is to support Peter's version, but also the short version. I think they both send a message And OP needs to understand that this commission is here for the long run, and we're gonna be engaged by any means necessary.
Lisa?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, there's a lot of chat in the comments about Chair Speck and his involvement in this short resolution. Chair Speck drafted the short resolution because I called him. And I want to make this very clear to the public and make sure that you guys understand what proceeded this morning. I stayed up last night till 5 o'clock in the morning reading every document, the SAP in its entirety, every resolution, every attachment, the race recommendations. And it took me that long to do it, but I was so concerned about the totality of what I read that I immediately called Randy and was very concerned about the way we as a commission are being perceived based on the recommendations that we're putting forth. I don't want to, and I understand the concerns with development in the city a lot. I understand the concerns of wanting to constrain development to get more and to maximize our affordable housing, but not to the extent where we shut down development, and particularly shut down development in Chevy Chase. That's a deal breaker for me. And when you look at everything that we submitted in totality, and what my deal breaker was the race committee's recommendations that made me say, I cannot support this. So it was my conversation with Chair Speck as vice chair that we go back to the drawing board as quickly as possible, because we are going to make that deadline. We had 60 days to do it. Most federal comment periods are 60 days. So we should be able to get this done and put something on the board to OP. So that is how this short recommendation came about. It was my concern over what we have recommended to the body.
Peter?
Let me see if I can work backwards here. To Lisa, I say this. I believe that the provisions in the resolution I helped draft both set limits and clear the way for development. You'll notice that in the structure that sets limits, you comply with these limits and you comply with the provisions of the eventual form-based code, bang, you get it. No, it's the streamlined system that Mayor Bowser has been trying to get all along. You comply with these provisions and you provide 30% affordable housing, bang, you get it, up to 60 feet. Only after 60, you got to do a process. So I believe that what I've been trying to structure there is something that both streamlines processes to get development happening, but sets limits to reassure the community. It is not just trying to stop development. Just a couple things about, that remark addresses Connie too. On the issue of the largeness of the resolution, I just say this: we passed a resolution on Murray ECC that involves a much smaller parcel of land of one use, not of the complexity of our center, the core of our community on Connecticut Avenue. And I think it ran with the conditions to 60 pages. When you lose the attachments here, you got down to 22 with the resolution I helped write. Oh, by the way, with regard to Chaz, I just say, if Chaz is going to vote for him, you vote for mine, I'll be happy to vote for Randy's too. But because it'll get across the specificity that I think is needed, and then I can go with Randy's. To John, I just say this. You've talked about there being a substantial change as we've gone along in the resolutions. Well, there's no more substantial change than going from what I helped draft to Randy. So that's a big one. You've talked about a form-based code. I too, in this resolution, talk about putting in a form-based code, but look at the examples that we have from the city. They took years to do. So one of the things in this resolution, it says, the resolution that I'm trying to get you to vote for, it says, make all those guidelines in the draft small area plan mandatory on development. So we have some we have some rules right off the bat. And the other thing it says is it asks the zoning commission to, if they do so-called map amendments, which are rezoning a particular parcel, they make them as best as possible comport to what we've now made as mandatory rules that are going to carry us over to the time when we, sitting at a table with OP, with members of the community, draft the provisions of this new zone. And finally, I just say again, the lawyers who we've talked to, I mean, the expression that, that I remember the most is no clear authorizing language, fight over. When you go to draft it, even if you're sitting at the table, if there ain't authorizing language in the small area plan, and we need to ask for it to get it in there in this resolution, fight over. We can't do that. So again, offer again, besides taking attachments 1 and 2 off the table, I'll vote for the short one if we can get the long one too. Seems like a strange vote, but I mean,
Peter, it's not about the length. I mean, I'm going to go back to that grand bargain. Okay, you're saying 45 feet in height right now, based on the current zones we have, it's at 40 feet. Only the M&T bank gets up to 40 feet. You're saying 45 feet. The new in the FLUM, it goes to moderate density residential. That's to 50 feet, right? That's matter of right. That's only 1 story more. Okay, why arbitrarily say 45? I don't get that. And anything that goes up, if someone wants to propose only up to 65, it's a plan unit development, so it's already in there. So I don't understand that kind of constraints. And that was what I spent 12 hours yesterday. I put in those comments, okay, to say, the more I read it, the less this makes sense. And we never had time to go over that. That is the biggest piece of what you're saying. And the second biggest piece of this long draft was about this new zone, which almost seems like we created it. But in fact, as John said, it is on page 59. We're keying off of what OP has already said. They think we should do this based on everything that they've heard. It would make more sense to have an overlay. I mean, they've said that, and we should gladly say, great, but it's not a part of the plan because that's not what this plan is. It's the next stage of that, right? OP has a design review committee, like an office. They handle all of those things. And that's what they're going to propose to the zoning commission. So it was that part of things that I could not say okay to, because it seemed arbitrary to me. We're not experts. I don't want to say that. And I think that the simplified, which is not even on the table right now, but the simplified version captures everything. In fact, it takes some of the concluding paragraphs that we have in that longer draft, and it makes the point faster. I mean, that's all I have to say.
Okay, let me just say,
it's not about length.
Yeah, we should take this. We should take this to a vote. But let me just say a couple of things. One is the reason there are numeric limits in the structure that I've proposed. There's also an out, which is 60 feet, and you're back to the community. You can do all sorts of things. Yes, 45 is a give from 50. It's also a give for the community from 40, which is where zoning is now. Yes, 60 is a give for 5 feet from the 65 that might be the zoning designation that would come with the upflumming that has already been approved. It does the following. It sets a streamlined way to get projects approved where then they stay within these limits. They go right through. The ANC doesn't comment. There aren't community meetings. You just have to follow these rules. And at the same time, it reassures this community, which if anything has come through in a year of listening to people, it's this concern that any development is untrammeled development. It reassures them. And I think in the long run, what that means is we get more, not less. We're going to try to do a first project at the community center library. In the course of drafting this, we've taken out a bunch of stuff that I'd hoped to put into the community, the civic core portion of this, because of concerns that it over constrains that development. But my hope is that that sets a tone for all of the development across the rest of the commercial core. And the notion that we give the community some reassurance that there's going to be, we tell them there's going to be development, there's going to be change here, there should be change here, we need change here, we need greater diversity, we need to be able to house people of various races and various socioeconomic means that we can't do now, but there's not untrammeled development, there are limits on it. Seems like a way to get us to more development, not less. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you jive that with development that has already occurred in other areas of the city? Not subject to the constraints that we're trying to impose.
I guess I don't, I mean, we're trying to represent our community's interests, which we take broadly. I mean, I'm not sure why, what do you want me to square with? I mean,
I'm just talking about the equity in this.
Yeah. I mean,
you know, when you talk about, and this is one of the things that I'm very concerned about, the appearance of this is that we're constraining some of these issues where other parts of the city haven't.
Well, hold it. Look at the 8th Street overlay. I mean, they also talk about lower density things facing their main street. I mean, these, I mean, and Lisa, whatever the—
I'm just asking a question. I'm just
asking whatever the appearance is. I mean, the fact is that there's a give there. The give is we just clear the way for you know, we the ANC, we don't get to say anything about a 45-foot building that fits those things. We don't get to say anything about a 60-foot building. Smooth as butter, you know. That's exactly what the mayor asked for with in the Rock Creek West stuff, and she wants to stream or look at from the July 2019 Urban Land Institute study on. It is, we need to streamline the process.
I'm not debating.
I combine the two things. That's all.
Peter, first of all, lower your tone. I'm not debating that. I'm talking about the appearance of us putting that in our plan, and as comparative to other jurisdictions in the city that have gone through major development and didn't have it. I think it looks a little bit unequitable to me. I think that's how it appears.
Lisa, look, I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, I won't debate you. I just point out to you.
No, it's not a debate. It's a comment that I'm making to you. It's a comment that I'm making.
In the last decade, this city has produced something like 250,000 units of new housing. 1,105 are affordable by any stretch of the imagination.
I know the numbers well. I know the numbers well.
You know, so I mean, the notion that we both try to streamline, to make it happen and limit to assure our community does not seem like a bad look. And I don't think it seems like a bad policy. So anyways, look, I'm not going to drag you through this more, any of you. I hope that you'll consider these arguments. As I say, I am willing to lose attachments 1 and 2, and I am willing to vote for the small as well as the large resolution. I hope you'll give me your vote for this one.
Let me just chime in with a few comments. The first thing, Connie is correct, I think, that the future land use map provides a pretty significant limitation on height already. And any development that comes in is going to have to first go to the zoning commission to get a zoning change. And that's going to be a public proceeding as well. And you know, that will be an opportunity for all of us to chime in. Procedurally, you know, I think we are, as I think John mentions, at the earliest stages here, really, because there's going to be a lot of additional work that's going to be done over the next period of years. You're right, Peter, the first thing to come up is likely to be the civic core, and that alone is going to have a tremendous amount of public input. They've already assured us, not just OP, but the mayor's office has assured us, and I'm confident that it will happen, that we'll have a lot of input in the RFP that goes out for that property. And that's going to be very, very important. The ANC has never been shy about offering its opinion about all kinds of things, and will certainly be very active and very vocal about every step of this process. And it's going to require not only the participation of the ANC, but residents are going to chime in too. This is going to be a public process. And I think the most important thing that we need to do, and again, there's this trade-off between limitations on the size of the buildings and the setbacks and all of those kinds of things. There's a trade-off between that and doing the kind of affordable housing that I know Lisa is very concerned about. I'm very concerned about. I think we're all very concerned about, is that we have real legitimate affordable housing here. And we've had passed resolutions in the past that were incredibly aggressive on that point, that we want to have 50% of the civic core affordable housing, dedicated affordable housing. We want to have deeply affordable housing. And the rest of the corridor, we want 25% to be affordable housing. We need to reiterate those concerns, and that needs to be in the plan, as far as I'm concerned. That's a very significant omission. And I'm concerned too that if we start specifying things like height and buffers and setbacks and all of those kinds of things, we don't know enough at this point to say what the trade-offs are going to be for doing that. And it is a process. And in the interim, I think there can be sufficient constraints, and we've suggested that in the short version of the resolution that I've drafted. But you know, I think this will be, frankly, more persuasive to OP. I think they're likely to go along with most of the things that we proposed, rather than trying to go through and parse each of the various recommendations that we have in the longer version. I think this is going to be persuasive for OP. I think it would give them the kind of direction that they really need. And we've also taken a big step, I think, in making our support for the small area plan contingent on including those points in the small area plan. So, I think we're giving every possible signal to OP that this is what we insist on, really. But again, as John said, we're advisory here. We do not have, I think Chaz mentioned it, that we're not dictating here. We can't dictate to OP. The only way I've found in my 9.5 years on the commission that we can be successful is if we are persuasive. And I think a shorter document that gets right to the point and states our requests very, very powerfully and succinctly is going to be more persuasive. Okay, Michael?
I just want to respond to a string of comments in the chat that seems to imply that somehow we have worked in a non-transparent way without endeavoring to keep the community involved. And I would say that as resolutions were drafted and we were working around the clock, as people have indicated, we've posted them on our webpage and on the Chevy Chase community listserv. Additionally, Connie has worked tirelessly to have how many, 10, I think, or 11 listening sessions where we heard from community members and non-community members alike, experts and lay people, to try to obtain an understanding of what the interests of the community were and are with respect to this small area plan and the development of Chevy Chase. So it's so hurtful, in a sense, to hear people say, you're working in a non-transparent way, antagonistic to the community. That is not what we are doing. We have endeavored as best as we could to involve the community. You have to keep one thing in mind as well, which is that none of us has a mailing list of our constituents. we have begged the Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commission to help us get a mailing list of our constituents to no avail. So we don't have a mechanism to send an all ANC email to anybody. We send as best we can to our own lists. We post on the Chevy Chase listserv. We post on the neighbors one and the Google group one. We post on our Facebook social media pages. We post on our ANC commission. And so when people say, I'm surprised that I'm just learning about this, part of me wants to say, well, you know, part of the burden is on you to stay informed over the course of the months and months and months that we've been working on this. And you can't come to us at the 11th hour and say, geez, I'm sorry I didn't know about it. That's not completely on us, and it's not fair. So I wanted to get that off my chest. I'm sorry.
Let me also say that no matter what we do tonight, we're going to have some people who will disagree with it. This is a very polarized issue in the community. There are going to be a lot of people on one side and a lot of people on the other side and a lot of people on three other sides. And ultimately, we have to make decisions. That's why we're here.
And I'd add, Randy, just to be clear to, again, many in the chat, as Lisa Gore indicated, your pared down or streamlined or shortened, whatever we want to call it, version of this is essentially a distillation of the longer version. It's not as if we said all along, we want to grow apples. And then all of a sudden today at 6:50, we said, you know what, oranges? Hardly. We've just basically said, we've talked about how to get to an end that we want to get to, and it's proven to be incredibly complicated. So what we're going to do, what Lisa asked Randy to do, and which he has done ably, is to take the essence of Peter's resolution as best as he can, and to distill from it the most important points that we want to get across to OP with very clear language at the end of it, which says, we suggest the most important things, paragraph 6, and we'll go through that when we get to the discussion of this, but that it is that our support for the small area plan is contingent upon the acceptance of the paragraph 6 proposition, which we will talk through, and us having a seat at the table, at the drafting table, to make sure that the views of the community are represented in this, what John Higgins calls the second phase, the drafting phase of this. So again, just to make sure that the community is clear, this is what the shortened version is about. This is how it came about, and that our acceptance of the small area plan is really understood to be a contingent acceptance. We accept the small area plan only contingent upon the following conditions being met. So you can read it this way to say, without these conditions being met, if OP does not accept these conditions, if OP does not give us a seat at the table, then this ANC commission is in fact not accepting the small area plan, because that's how it's set up. With these conditions, contingent upon them, we accept. If you don't accept these conditions, you're right back to us, say, you know, too bad, we don't, then this is effectively reject the SAP vote in my view of it. So now I'll be quiet.
Lisa?
I call for the vote.
Okay. Everybody ready to vote? Okay, Peter's motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor of the motion? 3. All those opposed to the motion? 3. Any abstentions? One. Okay, the motion then fails. 3 to 1.
Can I just ask a question in respect, Randy, of abstentions? Is it the norm that when a person abstains that they articulate the reason for the abstention? I don't know, John, if it's just a little bit confusing to me. It seems to me that you've in your comments, you suggested the reason why you don't support it, and now you're abstaining. So I'm just curious about that.
It's not customary. If he wants
No.
to do that, he can. It's not customary to ask that of someone that abstains.
Okay, that's fine. If you don't have to answer, John. I just seemed that you had indicated eloquently why you were opposed to it, and then in the end you abstained. You don't have to answer the question. We can just move on.
Okay, well, let's then talk about the alternative. And as Lisa mentioned, this came about when she called me this morning and said that she had significant concerns about the other resolution that was being considered, and that we should have an alternative. And so I endeavored to draft it based on a lot of the things that were already in Peter's and Connie's and Chaz's draft. In fact, I pulled a lot of the things directly from it, including some of the introductory language and some of the concluding language. And the idea was to, as I think Michael mentioned, to synthesize what was in the longer version, and to put a great deal of emphasis on the need to continue this process, and that this was the beginning of the process, and we wanted to be, in fact, we insisted on being involved in the process as it moves forward. And so I hope people have been able to find it on our website, and I do apologize that we didn't get this out earlier. I wish we could have, but it literally happened today. And we really didn't get it done until this afternoon. So the introductory part is fairly self-explanatory. It does indicate that the community is sharply divided, and there have been a lot of different perspectives expressed about the draft small area plan.
Randy, excuse me 1 second. Is the draft area plan is there a link to it in the chat so people can look at it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry
we
to-
put it in multiple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the meeting information page. So if you've registered for this, it's the same place you go.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to make
To
sure
see
that
the
everyone
link.
could see it as we talk through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, the introductory paragraphs I think are really pretty self-explanatory, and indicating that this is a part of a long journey that we're all going to be on for some time. And it's not as if anything is going to happen on the avenue for a significant period of time. The earliest probably is the civic core, and that's still years away from being done, with a lot of work between now and then. So the real core of the proposal is the proposed resolution is paragraph 6, and it consists of several bullet points, and I'll just go through them briefly one by one. The first is that it is essential that the small area plan require creation of a new zone and form-based codes that will apply to the future development that is mentioned in the draft small area plan on page 59. And those standards must include, among other things, reasonable specifications for height, setbacks, buffers with nearby residents, alley accessibility, and design features. This is the only way to ensure that new structures will meet the community expectations for balanced development. So that's really the the key thing. And I think it takes up where Peter's from Peter's suggestion. I think Peter really emphasized that in his draft, and I think we want to pick up on that. The second bullet addresses the interim time period between now and whenever that new zone can be adopted. And it requires, we ask that the SAP require language specifying that during the period before the new zone or form-based code is developed, the design guidelines in the small area plan serve as benchmarks or floors for any decision that may come before the zoning commission. So if we have that kind of language in the small area plan, the zoning commission's got to take that into account when they're considering any new development. The third bullet, it is equally essential that the ANC and the community be integrally involved in the creation of the new zone and form-based codes. This is what we've been discussing quite a lot tonight, is that we have to be at the table, as Peter says, and we have to have a seat at the table, and we have to be there to participate in that process. If there is a steering committee or some other mechanism that's used to develop the detailed standards, we need to be part of that, and before it's presented to the zoning commission. Next, and this I think is really essential, and it's missing from, I think, even from our longer draft, is that the small area plan requires specificity for affordable housing goals. And these are the goals that I mentioned before that were initially adopted by the commission in its March 2021 resolution. And that's a goal of at least 50% dedicated affordable housing for the civic core, and for the remaining plan area, a goal of at least 25% affordable housing with focus on households earning 50% or less of MFI, considering other requirements as well. So this is something that we've said from day one, really, that we want a real emphasis on affordable housing, and that needs to be in the plan with those specific numbers is what we're asking them to do. We also talked about in the longer version how infrastructure has to be developed in coordination with the development of housing along the avenue. That's including schools, transportation, parking, water, sewer, etc. And they have to be planned concurrently with any new development. And as the commission emphasized in its 2020 resolution, whatever growth may occur in Chevy Chase planning area cannot happen without accompanying infrastructure, and there must be a plan to make that happen. Next, the small area plan should not include topics that are outside the scope of this planning effort. And there are two in particular, recommendations 4.4, which deals with vouchers in areas that are not in the small area plan.
No, it's not vouchers, it's naturally affordable. Natural.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Naturally,
Yeah, right. But
That's right.
but it goes beyond the boundaries. Yeah.
And 4.7, which deals with single family zoning, which is not a part of the small area plan. Those two recommendations we say should be stricken. Next, with regard to recommendation 2.6, which supports community efforts for historic landmark and historic designation of eligible resources within the Connecticut Avenue corridor, we say that should encompass the possible designation of the west side of Connecticut Avenue as a historic district. And the commission believes that nothing in the small area plan should prevent or preclude consideration of historic district for the west side of Connecticut Avenue. And finally, the last paragraph, and this is something Michael mentioned before, that all of those points, all those points in paragraph 6 have to be addressed and included in the small area plan for the commission to fully support the plan as a crucial step in achieving the community's vision. So I would move that we adopt this resolution as the commission's comments on the proposed draft small area plan. Is there a second?
Can we have discussion first? Do we?
Yes.
or-
No.
we
Second.
run
gotta
out of discussion?
first.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to say something, Lisa, which is, Randy, I sent earlier today, earlier could mean 6:45, I don't know. I sent earlier today some additional language to put into paragraph 7, which is paragraph 7 as it reads now says, contingent on the acceptance of the points in paragraph 6 of this resolution, that's the points that Randy just read, the commission supports the CCSP as a crucial step in achieving community's vision. What I've added to that, because I think it's imperative, and my acceptance of the small area plan is conditioned on both the acceptance of the paragraph 6 bullet points and our having a seat at the table. And so I want to ensure that it's not simply that the acceptance of these points, which is mandatory in my view, but rather that anything that goes forward from here, we as an ANC and that the community, particularly, as I said earlier, particularly the residents who are most closely situated to the commercial district, have a seat at that table. So that's that. So I sent you language, Randy, that
Yeah,
would be a friendly amendment that I would add to.
I accept the amendment. Okay.
I would strike the word. I would strike the word fully supports. I think I just plain old support because I have no. Because I think, as I said earlier, I think that we are supporting this, recognizing that it is a defective document in many, many ways. But if we don't do something now, then the great weight that our voice is entitled to will not be heard. And so simply to say no is to essentially, I think, cut us out of the future of the development of the avenue, and actually would be more harmful to the interests of the community and the interests that we're trying to promote in this process than saying yes, but contingent on conditions and a seat at the table.
John?
I have a friendly amendment similar to Michael, so it may be redundant, which I hope addresses Peter's point about making sure that we have language. If this is what we're going to go with to the OP, that we have a specific reference to public engagement in the drafting process, which sort of is similar to Michael's, but let me introduce it and read it anyway. It's fairly short. The commission's proposal to create a standing committee anticipates the public engagement elements of the CCSAP with authority to participate in zoning drafting activities similar to other projects within DC, such as St. Elizabeth. That's the motion. Then I have brackets referencing page 7 and 59 of the SAP, and also a reference to a Brookings study related to St. E's, which talks about the creation of a steering committee.
Would that be?
I particularly use the word zone drafting activities, and I hope, Peter, that that works for you.
Where would you put that?
I think I would put it under the second bullet.
Okay. It's really maybe under what is now the third bullet, I think.
Maybe the third bullet, I'm sorry.
That's the, yeah, that's the community, ANC and community involvement in the
Right.
development.
Sorry.
So it'd be. Okay, I don't have any problem with that. I would accept that as a friendly amendment. Lisa?
Randy, can you or Michael, can one of you do me a favor and just repeat that friendly amendment that Michael offered?
Yeah, I've got it here. Contingent on the acceptance of the points in paragraph 6 of this resolution and the establishment of a committee structure at which the ANC and the community have seats at the table in order to implement and to bring greater granularity and enforceability to the CCSAP, the commission supports the CCSAP. Okay, Michael? Did you have anything else, Lisa, before we move?
No,
Yep.
I just need to go back and look at that real quick.
Okay.
So I have one question, which is, before we vote and approve this, is there a contemplation that we will hear from the community, or are we hearing from the community through the chat, and that's how we are getting, because I thought we had agreed at some point that members of the community who wanted to speak would have a minute or two to speak. So I don't know what, I'm just trying to figure out how we're going about hearing from the community, who I think we have, notwithstanding some who think otherwise, been we've tried very hard to hear as best we could from the community. And I'll say, in addition to the 11 sessions that Connie and Chaz and others hosted, Connie and I have sat at the farmer's market for 4 hours every Saturday for weeks and weeks and weeks with the small area plan at our little table, freezing sometimes, in order to talk to the members of the community who were coming to the farmer's market. We'd stop them at our little table there that said ANC and had the banner, and we'd say, are you familiar with the small area plan? And we'd have copies of it printed out, and we'd hand it out to people, and we'd advise them of how they can get information, get additional information about the small area plan. So again, it bears reiterating that we have done so much as we think, as much as we are able to without a mailing list, to speak to and get input from the community.
What do the commissioners want to do about comments from attendees? Shall we do that now, or do you want to wait until all the commissioners have had comments about the draft resolution that's now?
I think we should continue on the comments to the draft resolution and then open it up so that we have continuity of thought here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do have a question on Michael's on the, but you've accepted it already. So how do we proceed? The friendly amendment?
Well, you want to modify it? You can certainly ask to modify.
Yeah. So I might have to wait a second if I wanted to modify. I was actually trying to clarify. So
okay, that's fine.
Let me try to clarify. Okay.
Okay.
So Michael, the original it ends on paragraph 6, which includes what you're saying already, if there are mechanisms for us to be at the table, but you're saying something different. You're asking for a committee.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Randy's resolution goes to paragraph 7. Doesn't end on paragraph 6. It has a paragraph 7. I'm just adding
No.
a phrase.
Yes, I understand. I must have misspoken. I mean that your addition is referencing paragraph 6, which has many different bullets. And part of the bullet already has this, I'm trying to get the right bullet here. Is it bullet 4? Yeah, it's the bullet 4. It's in bullet 3 rather. Sorry, it goes to the next page. So I'm just wondering, is it necessary to have this additional language? Because I'd like us to be as concise as possible. If we can, it's already there. So I don't think it's necessary, is what I'm trying to say.
And I guess My,
That's what confused me too.
my
Yeah.
thought is that it is the most important aspect of our resolution that going forward, we have a seated at the table. And so it seems to me as just, it's stylistic that we're saying, so in conclusion, can we accept the small area plan subject to paragraph six above, and reiterating the importance of us having a seat at the table. So it's really just to bear down on how important that is to us, Connie. So it's just sort of an in conclusion emphasis.
Could you move that, Michael, to the last bullet as opposed to the third?
No, what he's suggesting, it would go at in the last paragraph.
No, I think Lisa's saying if that's so important, you could just move the third bullet to the bottom, so it kind of ends that way, and then you have your conclusion. So, but
Right.
I think every part of the 6 matters. So again, I think we should just be, as clear as possible. It's all 6. Then we fully support it. I like the way it ends. It's every one of those that we pointed out. Just like the deletion, striking the recommendation 4.7, 4.4, because it goes beyond it. I think these are just as important. I mean, in stating, in bringing that out and highlighting it. That's all. I'm not in disagreement that it's important. I'm just saying, I think it's just saying it again. I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, well, I mean, whatever the majority thinks, I would, it's, as I say, it's a writing style. I would emphasize it because of its importance, but if people think that it's being redundant, then to Chaz's finger, we can move on.
Even though it is repetitive, I think it doesn't have to hurt to have belt and suspenders here. So I think it's okay. Okay, other comments from commissioners before we open it up to comments from the community?
Oh,
Michael?
I have one other thing, which is in Peter's draft, I requested that when we define the word affordable housing, that we also indicate that by it, we recognize the need for workforce housing, and that affordable housing implies both affordable, as we've defined it, and workforce, because I think that that is an important need in our community. So I would put a footnote in there, and it says affordable housing, drop footnote saying by affordable housing we mean both affordable and workforce housing.
Well, how about, well, anyone else have objection to that?
Randy, I've got a million things I would want to suggest as details.
Chaz, you went on mute.
Thank you. I've got about 24 details I would want to add if we had all evening, but we opted for the short version. I think we ought to keep it short.
Mm-hmm.
But I think workforce is Chaz. I'm trying not to nitpick.
Mike, I agree with you, but there's other things I think are important as well. We haven't, there's all sorts of things we could specify, and we're back to last night at 11:30 at night.
Yeah, well, I'm fine with that.
But if you want to make,
this is early in the evening for me.
How do others feel about adding workforce? I mean,
I'm fine with it.
well,
And we talked about that a lot.
Yeah, what I would suggest is that in the 4th bullet, then at the first sentence, we say the CCSAP requires specificity for affordable and workforce housing goals. Is that all right? Okay. Okay. All right. Shall we open it up to the community then, or any other commissioner comments before we do that? Okay, I would suggest that anyone who wishes to speak, we're going to give people a very short time. I think we agreed on 1 minute for each person, right? In order to make sure as many people can speak as possible. And if you'll raise your hand, then we'll make you a panelist and let you speak for a minute. And we'll recognize people in the order in which they raise their hands. Okay, Lee Schenecker is the first. And then Jamie Butler.
Followed by Jamie Butler. Mhm.
Okay.
I have two basic comments.
Just one second, Lee, if you could, I want to get the timer going here.
Oh, I gotta get over here.
All right.
I have
All
two
right.
basic comments. Number one, as I will say in my review to OP, and I've said before to various different people in the ANC, I simply don't think that the current site of the community center and the library are big enough to accommodate everything you want to accommodate. And I would strongly suggest that you consider going across the street with something like either the community center or the library, and that would give you more room for housing, including rental housing, mixed housing, affordable housing, so forth. My second comment is that, I mentioned this to Randy several times, I think that remote learning, remote communication, Zoom and so forth, has its definite shortcomings. And I would urge very strongly that in the future, as you go into more details, that you have public meetings in the community center. Randy has suggested to me that community center is not well set up to deal with people outside of the community center. Have two different types of meetings. I heard this tonight.
Okay,
from various
Lee,
different-
your minute's up. So
That's fine.
okay. Thank you. Jamie?
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to say a few words. I did serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee. I will admit to that. And I want to say that I support the small area plan and this shortened resolution. I think it's our best compromise. I believe that this is a roadmap, that I trust you commissioners will stay on top of this as you have been. I think it's the best way to represent a divided community. I also think that it is unfair to use, we haven't had opportunities for input as a way of trying to minimize the plan and the people who support it. It's just unfair. It makes it seem like there's no community support because people flood the listserv and the chat with negative comments. I think you've all done your best to shore up the areas we're concerned about. And I really urge you to go with this shortened version, which has a better chance of making our work with OP manageable. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie. And Corinthia Simmons.
Hi, Corinthia here. I would like to say that I have been involved in the entire process from the SAP with Office of Planning, providing my comments. I have also lived in 4 of the 8 wards in DC, and I am in support of the SAP. I think our community center needs to be updated. Our library needs to be updated, similarly to all the other developments that have been going on throughout the city. And I think Chevy Chase should not be excused from the development along the corridor. And I also live where the development will happen. So I hope that you all will be in support of it. And I have nothing but positive comments for supporting the SAP.
Thank you, Corinthia.
Thanks, Corinthia. Then Mara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mara Verheyden Hilliard. The SAP is rhetoric without any substance. It talks about encouraging, it talks about opportunities. It does not mandate affordable housing. And what this is going to do is take this once in a many generation opportunity in Chevy Chase to actually create meaningful, affordable housing. This is simply opening up this area for an unbridled developer giveaway. And there is no reason this SAP can't look like other SAPs look, which have granular detail, have specific binding requirements. I mean, this is performative. And the whole process has been performative because, in fact, the OP has fully disregarded the hundreds of comments that community members and DC residents put in about the design plan. And frankly, this group isn't even talking about the comments that have come to the ANC from its standing committee on racial and social equity. So I'm deeply concerned about what we're seeing transpire here. This is being railroaded through, and I don't believe that you can have open government or sunshine when you are putting forward a resolution that has just suddenly been put up this afternoon. Most of the community has never seen it. Most of us have never seen it until just now in the chat, and yet you're going to vote on it. I mean, this is a complete abrogation of the ANC's responsibilities as a governing body. And frankly, when the ANC endorsed the comp plan, it promised the community that it was doing so because there would be a granular SAP. And this SAP does nothing to push for affordable housing, which we need to change the racist legacy of Chevy Chase. This is actually going to open it up to luxury housing, and that's the outcome that we'll have here. And additionally,
Thank you, Mara.
look, I'm going to finish my 5 seconds, which
Okay, I don't think anybody else has raised their hand.
Pat Roth.
Oh, okay. Pat Roth.
Are we really cutting people off now? Is that what we're doing?
Well, we said we were going to give people 1 minute. And
I'm calling in to give my minute to Mara Verheyden because she was in the middle of making an important point. And I think there's a big distinction that this committee has to look at. And I support Peter Gosselin on this, that the people who live directly next to Connecticut Avenue voice is different from the people who live on 28th Street or 30th Street. It's not, the impact in those neighborhoods is not going to be the same as it is going to be for the close-in residents. And I think you need to listen to Mara, who's in the first block off Connecticut Avenue. And otherwise I'll yield my time back to Mara.
You doing that?
No,
Okay.
no.
No what?
Everybody's getting a minute, Peter.
Oh.
So no, we're not yielding back time.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Am I correct?
You know, just I want to, for what it's worth, I would vote in favor of yielding back time with only 5 people who want to speak. I think that
Ron Khan has his hand up.
we should hear Mara out.
Well, you know, it is, we've heard from all of these people before. So.
But we're voting, but we're at the point of voting. So it's at a different juncture.
We have Diane Thompson and Libby Martin.
Okay. Okay, Diane?
Yes, I'd like to yield my time to Mara.
Thank you, Diane. Libby?
Really not going to do that? That sounds like.
I am not a great public speaker. I am not somebody with a deep knowledge of DC politics, but I am a member of the race committee, and I do feel like we are missing one very important piece here. we are not hearing from the minorities who are part of our community. We need to center a lot more our thoughts on that. And we have a lot to do in this country and and in our neighborhood. Everybody knows that. I think there's a way for us to all find a way. I would just urge that we could continue to have discussions and realize that we are going to be a much better place in Chevy Chase, DC, as a neighborhood where we can grow together, have a future that's more fair, equitable, interesting, diverse, and we need to continue to center that as part of this big discussion. I haven't heard any of it. I've heard a lot of talk about affordable housing, but that becomes a buzz term that I don't really think we think about anymore. What does that mean?
Thank you, Libby. I'm going to suggest that we let Mara have 2 more minutes. If that's okay with everyone.
And then after that, you want to go to Q&A?
Yeah, if there's some Q&A in there rather than just comments. Some of them are, I think there's comments, but. Okay, Mara.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. As I was saying, you have a process here where the OP process itself doesn't even reflect the community's views, where they intentionally disregarded, for, against, or otherwise, 646 comments. I mean, I've never seen a government put forward a public comment period and then willfully and knowingly disregard all of those comments one way or another as it moved to its next draft. That alone should be enough for the ANC to demand that this process be paused and be reopened to actually include community involvement. And additionally, there's about to be what is called a Green New Deal and affordable housing legislation that has majority council support. Chevy Chase is going to push through a developer track that will be running in an aggressive way against what is a new public policy of the District of Columbia that will have new agencies and new opportunities to actually be integrated into what should be the planning process of an SAP so that we can look at real affordable housing, including social housing. I don't know why the ANC is jamming this through and pushing this through, not extending the comment period and not allowing for a reopening of the SAP to address its infirmities. This isn't process for process sake. These are actual infirmities in what is in the SAP. It has nothing there. It's all opportunity or encouragement. It has no guardrails. It has no requirements for meaningful affordable housing at all. And we have one chance here to get this right. Why is this being rammed through right now in complete abrogation of sunshine rules, of open government rules, through this process to this night? This is a time when Chevy Chase can stand up and do something right. And I don't know why this council is insisting on trying to push through something that is, as I said, a developer giveaway. All over the district, this fight is occurring. People are fighting, led by racial justice and affordable housing activists, against these developer land grabs to try and have a real structure in place for affordable housing. Chevy Chase could turn on its ugly history and do something right here. And you're voting on this and endorsing the SAP is going to ensure that, in fact, that doesn't happen. You're hearing from all of these constituents who are saying, pause this process, reopen it to make it right. Make this SAP exactly what it should be. Saying that you just want a seat at the table for some of you to sit there later on and maybe something will happen is not going to give this area and the district and the residents what they are entitled to. The reason we have an affordable housing crisis is because of the developers and their unbridled devouring of the district and exclusion of people and luxury housing. That can change here, and it should start here in Chevy Chase. This is our chance to do this right.
Thank you, Mara.
I have a question for Mara.
Okay,
So, hi, Mara. So I would like to just flesh this out a little bit with you. If OP has said to us, you must comment to us by May 13th, or, that's what they're telling us. We have asked for extensions. We've got one 30-day extension. And we do not believe we could get a second extension, that if we don't speak before May the 13th, OP will just disregard us altogether. So what I'm wondering is, if that's the fact, that OP will not extend the time for additional comment, and we have concerns with the SAP, I share all the concerns that you've just articulated. How would you suggest we get our voice the great weight that we want it to get, if we don't say, we don't accept your plan unless you do the following things, which is how we're trying to set this up, and that those following things we expect to be a part of the drafting process of. So I'm just trying to get your point of view on this, because honestly, it's of concern to me. I was speaking with Jonathan Guy earlier today about the same thing, saying, how do we proceed if we want to do if we agree with what you're saying, but we have this deadline that OP has imposed on us, which we can't apparently change. What would you suggest?
I would suggest two things, and I don't think they're mutually exclusive. One is a formal request for an extension of the period, and that should also include a formal request based on the demonstrated irregularities in this process, that the OP reopen its process and that there be a draft plan that actually conforms with SAPs that are routinely done, that have mandatory language and specific requirements, but also requiring them to include your constituents' input in their final plan. That then should also be included along with whatever recommendation is put forward. But that recommendation, and again, I would turn to the Race Committee's recommendation, should say very clearly in your comments what the ANC thinks, that it believes this plan needs to be reopened, that it is not endorsing the plan as written, that the plan is lacking the granular detail as well as binding requirements that an SAP normally has. Why can't you say all of those things? That great weight is going to carry great weight. And to be able to say very clearly what is wrong with this plan and what needs to happen, and what needs to be binding in order to be able to have actually meaningful affordable housing. And frankly, what is the rush? Why can't this be paused until we have the Green New Deal legislation explicitly, so that, which has majority council support right now, explicitly so that that process can be part of our process? Why wouldn't we want this process and the SAP process to actually be engaged with the new public policy of the District of Columbia when it comes to affordable housing and social housing as this is built out?
thank you, Mara. Connie?
I was just going to make some clarifications. So one is that this is supposed to be the SAP like an evergreen document. So I did ask certain questions of OP, like under the equitable housing recommendation number 4.5 about acquisition funding. And I said, couldn't we be more specific and list laws? And they said, laws change and we want to be able to access them as they come. So this green law, this Green New Deal or whatever, all of those things will be a part of it. You don't have to wait until it happens, because every time we wait, we're just waiting because people are afraid of change. And I think there's no need. There's no need to do that. It is in here. We're still here. I don't see why people keep saying that 642 comments were not taken in. When I picked up this document, I sat in one of those visioning workshops with an attendee whose comment is actually in here. Like, their suggestions actually made it to the document, surprisingly enough. So I don't find that to be true. I think that people are not happy because their particular comments didn't show up, let's say, you know, or that they're rejecting it and therefore they're posing, as what Jamie Butler said earlier, they're posing that nothing was, that OP is just moving forward without considering what the community has said. I do not believe that that is true. So I just want to put that out on the record, and to say that there are going to be new laws that come, and we do hope that we'll be able to access that, either new laws or legislation that allows us to have some financial, like a bucket of money, so that we can do what we need to do, because it does cost a lot to get to the kind of affordable housing that we hope to achieve.
Lisa?
Let me just make a comment. You know, when people say, what's the rush is we have people in DC that are homeless. We have people in DC that don't have affordable housing now. Anytime we delay this type of a development, we delay the production of new units that could go to people that could afford them and other people that need them. So there is a ramification when we delay development. And I don't understand, you know, why people think that's not a big deal. The Green New Deal is a great piece of legislation that's proposed. It's not policy right now. It hasn't even passed. And we know that it's one of the things that's called for in Councilmember Janice Lewis George's legislation is creation of an agency to implement that policy. We are a long way. Does anyone really believe that we're in a narrow time frame from implementing, passing that legislation, getting it funded, and implementing, developing the agency, the protocols and everything, the oversight that goes around it? How long is that going to take? And how long do people in the district have for us to wait until that's done? There are people out there that need affordable housing now. We have a wait list of people that need affordable units. So any delay, and that's one of the things that greatly concerned me about Race's recommendation. That's not an immediate action. That is a extreme long-term action if we can get the current chair to put it on a committee, which I have great doubts she will. So that's one thing that we have a hurdle. So there is a rush to build affordable housing in this city. It's needed, and it's needed now.
Let me just also emphasize that we can't get started on the civic core until there is an SAP. They have made it abundantly clear that project cannot go forward until there is a small area plan. That's going to be crucial. And if we really want to have a new revitalized civic core that includes housing and affordable housing, then we shouldn't delay. The delay would be a big mistake. Okay, Ellen, you raised your hand to speak. You'll have 1 minute. Well,
yes, to continue on basically with the thread that Commissioner Gore was just mentioning, I believe that the strongest reason why OP is probably not inclined to extend the deadline is, as they explained earlier, if they don't get it in by shortly after the deadline that they set, where they need some time to make the changes that the ANC is recommending, once the council isn't even finished with the budget process, they have very little time to deal with all the rest of their legislation before they go on the summer break in August. And between the first reading and the second reading, they don't have to do 2 readings for resolution. At any rate, if we want to see this adopted by this council period, we need to not ask for great delays in submission. And if we don't get it done by this council period, there's a whole new council that comes in January, and legislation will have to be reintroduced. So there are important reasons why OP is trying to get the discussions wrapped up so that we can move forward with the Civic Core and with all of the other recommendations of the plan. So thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, is there anyone else? I don't see anyone now.
I don't see anyone, but I do. I haven't checked. Oh yeah, Robert Stern.
Okay, Robert.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your great work. Thank you for your great work. I want to thank all of you. I'm coming at this, as you all know, from a planning perspective. And I don't understand why we can't submit both proposals. I think it would be a big mistake to submit nothing. I think proposals are effective. And the more we say to OP, which I have a very low regard of, having spoken to them many times, the sooner we tell them that this is going to be done in an orderly and effective way, so that the type of input that Lisa's saying and Mara's saying and everything else is properly considered. I live within a half a block of the Starbucks, and the thought of a 70-foot building being built right on my block is scary to me and to my whole street. But beyond that, we need a plan, and we need a plan that we really have control over, Randy. And OP cut me off when we were at the Presbyterian Church. And I do say that a lot of us feel that we're not being heard. But I do want to thank each one of you for your hard work. Without people like you, we wouldn't be anywhere. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, is there anyone else, Lisa? Michael?
Right. So what I'm wondering is, in listening to the community comments that we've heard, and as you know, I voted for Peter's resolution rather, because it specified how affordable housing, I believe it specified how affordable housing should be accomplished in our community. What I'm wondering and I'm asking is, what is the appetite or thought around adding attachment 1, which is the list of very specific recommendations to the small area plan that get at more along the lines of what we've heard from the community, attaching that to this shortened version to say, with, finding a place in it to say, we incorporate by reference the attachment 1, which sets out our much more granular view of what the SAP should include. It seems to me that we have a resolution which is short and more understandable, perhaps, and then we add to it the specific language that Maura and others have said is lacking in the SAP. So we put our marker down that here is what we are telling OP must affirmatively be done as part of the SAP process. So I don't know, Peter, what you think. It's your attachment, and I don't know what other commissioners think about whether or not that helps bridge this divide.
Well, Michael, I'd love to see it happen, but I mean, I think the reality is that if there were any arguments last night, they were about attachment 1. I mean, yep. I guess the other worry I have is that we got to build in language that walks us, this sort of does the crosswalk to attachment 1. look, I mean, that gives real specificity. Even tells you the page it's supposed to be on, but well, I don't know. Of course, I would be honored if it were included, and I'd feel much better about this. But I think you all are the ones who are driving this car now. So what do the other commissioners think?
And so, Peter, I mean, the reason I raise this is that we've talked about how our small area plan differs from other small area plans in that other small area plans have mandates and are much more precise about what must be done. And our small area plan is a hortatory document with no granularity. You can't, as I've said many times, you cannot call this a small area plan because there's no plan connected to this document. So I'm just trying to figure out how, if we can do that, but I'm looking at the faces of the other commissioners and I think I'm wasting everyone's time.
Okay, we have one more audience member who wanted to speak. Ron?
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Real quick, I think the reason why we have an affordable housing crisis are the existing programs. Okay, so that wasn't mentioned why we have the crisis. That's not going to solve the crisis. We have very bad tools on dealing with the crisis. So I say giddy up to the new Green Deal, get that done ASAP so we can really improve the housing programs in DC. Also, Section 4, how is that resolution dealt with in your quick resolution, Randy?
Well, we strike 4.4 and 4.7.
Okay, I just wanted to know. I didn't hear that before. And how is the resolution processed?
What do you mean?
Where does it go, your resolution?
It goes to planning.
And what do they do with it?
They give it great weight.
Do they make those changes immediately to the small area plan based on that?
They're going to have another draft, and either they have to specify what they have to adopt it, or they have to explain why they don't adopt it.
When they submit it to the council, they'll have an executive summary that says these are all the changes in the plan, and these are things that came up, which they will, for the ANC, they'll say yes or no. Like, this is why we didn't, why we're not supportive of this.
Yeah, will the
They will
community
provide an explanation.
will the community see that copy?
Yes.
Yes, it goes to the council. And
When?
then when the council, whenever they submit it to the council, which we hope will be soon before the council goes off for summer break. So
It's
June
not-
is what they said
it's
to
not-
us.
So it's not final until then.
Correct.
Right. It's still under draft. There's still other comments coming in. So they're going to make sure that all the comments received online. So the public hearing comments are already on their dedicated webpage. All of the public comments received online through May 13th, they will, put it all together and share it with the council. And then they'll put forward to the council their final CCSAP with the difference between the draft and the final. So we all get to see that.
Well-documented process. That's why I wanted to ask.
Yes, it is. It's supposed to be.
Right, that's good. I can't on the fly compare the changes that you have, Randy. And it just can't be acceptable because I just can't figure it out. I don't think anybody sent through this can figure that out. I wish there was a better way. This is not going to gain the trust of the community. Since you keep referring to divided community, right? So how does this process bind the community, since anything done without community support is going to be very difficult in the future? I just want you to consider that strongly so we can bind the community better.
I will say, I would like to repeat, okay, I'm going to emphasize this. What Randy produced comes out of that larger, that document that's been floating around for a week. There's nothing new in there.
Now, I'm
It's
looking
just
at the
tighter,
and I'm
language.
saying, I'm looking at the
tighter
wording and
language.
say, I need to look at that much more clearly than what you're portraying it at, Condi. I don't want to take your word for it. In other words, I respect what you're saying. I do not take your word for it.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Okay, sorry, guys.
Okay, is that all the people who want to speak? Anybody else, Lisa?
Nope, it looks like that's
Okay.
it.
All right. Shall we call the vote? Okay. The motion, Michael?
How do we add friendly amendments?
More friendly amendments
Mhm.
or the ones that you've already said?
Well, the vote has been called for technically.
Yep. And there's no more debate at that
Yeah, we
point.
call the vote.
Then I'm going to vote against it.
Okay.
I just want to say what I wanted to add, and I get form over substance to me is just an anathema. But these rules that say we've called for something, we're a local community. I mean,
Michael, no.
That's my view, Lisa. We can disagree. I still love you, but we disagree about that.
I love you too, but we have these rules for a very good reason, and this is why.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I agree with that. But anyway, the point is that I would add language that I suggested to Peter's draft, which says that the greatest shortcoming of the Chevy Chase small area plan is its failure to articulate at a granular level how it intends to implement and enforce the various recommendations and to further ensure that its recommendations be made mandatory for all developments in the covered area. And the ANC asks and expects that the next version of the SAP contain this missing mandate. That's what I would add to this resolution. So, if Robert's rules, or whoever Robert is, doesn't allow for this, so be it. But I think that it's important that we say this.
Could you read that one more time, please, Michael?
The greatest shortcoming of the Chevy Chase small area plan is its failure to articulate at a granular level how it intends to implement and enforce its various recommendations and to further ensure that its recommendations be made mandatory for all development in the covered area. The ANC asks and expects that the next version of the SAP contain the missing mandate.
John?
Procedurally, however this goes, and there are people on different sides, would it be possible that, like a court document, as someone who is dissenting from the whole can can make a comment and that can be included in what we send to?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, although
even if it's a short paragraph like Michael, or something long, I think there should be an opportunity, the numbers don't necessarily.
Right. The point, though, John, that Randy has reiterated over and over is that our voice is given the greatest weight when it is unanimous. And so sticking this in a dissenting opinion, as Randy has been teaching us, undermines the strength of our voice. And so I can stick it in there. I'll abstain or vote against it and stick this in there. And then you have a 6-1 or 6-0-1 vote, which I thought was not desirable. But, you tell me, this, we work by consensus, and whatever the will of the majority is the way it goes. I'm not,
We called for the vote.
Okay, I don't disagree with Michael's comment, however, and I would be perfectly happy to include it, but no one else is. Chaz?
I'll agree to Michael's comment if it's his last comment.
I won't even say goodnight.
We've called the vote.
Okay, and the vote is without that addition?
Correct.
Okay, all right. All those in favor of adopting the motion to support the resolution that has been presented, It's 5. All those opposed? 2. Okay, the resolution passes 5-2.
So stupid. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be aggravated, but we're talking about, we all recognize that this is the shortcoming of the small area plan. So why don't we state it? Why is form overruling the substance of what we know is true?
Do you want to make another motion at this point, Michael, to support that statement?
I don't know exactly how to fashion.
You can make a motion for an additional resolution.
Okay,
for that point.
my motion is to add to the existing resolution, the paragraph which I read, which I can read again if people would like to hear it.
It's a motion to amend.
Right.
The motion to amend by adding a language that I've read. I could put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat so people can look at it.
Where do you want to put that, Michael?
Wherever Randy wants to put it.
I think it could go as another bullet under 6.
I'll second Michael's motion.
Any discussion?
Is it in the thing?
I don't see it.
Michael, did you put it in the chat? I don't see it. I don't know. I heard you read it twice, so, okay.
I put it in the chat. I can.
Maybe you
Right
put it in
in the
Q&A.
panelist chat.
Sorry?
No.
Says to everybody.
Do you want to just read it one more time, Michael?
I don't know why it's not. Okay, there it goes.
There it is.
Sorry about that.
That you've numbered it 6, and it could go at 6 and then bump the next down to 7.
As I said, Randy, wherever you're you own the pen, so wherever you think it fits best is fine. I'm more concerned with content than
So,
form.
Michael, let me just understand what it is that you're saying here. So they had the recommendations, they had implementers, right, on the second column. You're asking them to do exactly what?
What I'm
Like,
saying,
what is it that you want OP to do in this next draft?
articulate at a granular level how it intends to implement and enforce what is written in recommendations and other hortatory language. To Mara's point and to the point that Peter made in the longer form, our SAP stands apart from many other SAPs, which are much more specific in what is requested. And so what I'm saying is our SAP stands apart from others which are much more granular and have mandates and enforceability, and ours doesn't. And so what we're asking them is that if they're going to take out, when they take our comments and they, as Randy said, they'll give us another draft, I guess, that they make it granular and they tell us how they intend to do all this, and they move away from being a visioning document to a plan. It's not a
But
plan.
but that's exactly what I said earlier. It is a vision document. They've said
But
that
they
over and
call it
over
a plan.
again. It's a term of art. That's just the term that's used. But they've said this to us, that it's a
But
vision document.
Other plans have plans in it. This doesn't have any plans in it. So how do we vote for something that doesn't, that we can't, they could say whatever they want to say and have it be consistent with this document, because it only says we recommend, we encourage, we think about, maybe if it's not raining, it'll be fine. It doesn't help us. It doesn't help the community. It doesn't get us closer to affordable housing in the near term. Lisa's desire is, as we all share, to have this move as expeditiously as possible. Right now, we have a document that has no mandates, no enforcement mechanism, no nothing. We just have, blue sky language.
I don't agree with all of your characterizations, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't oppose the language that you proposed. And there's been a motion and a second, and I'll call the vote on the amendment to the resolution.
Okay.
All those in favor of the amendment that Michael has proposed? 4. All those opposed? 2. Any abstentions? Okay, the vote is 4 to 2 to 1. Okay, Michael's amended, and I will find an appropriate place to include that.
Well, then, so that being the case, do we?
You're the last one, remember?
I don't understand it, but that being the case, then I don't vote against the other.
We can't go back, Michael.
Oh.
This
we have to go. I'm sorry. I mean, I know we don't have a parliamentarian, but I've been a parliamentarian. You cannot do that procedurally. That is incorrect procedure. I'm sorry. There are parliamentarian rules and procedures, and we're not going to break it.
We're not going to do that, Michael.
Yeah, we're not going to do that.
I'm just asking the question of then how does this go forward? How does it?
It will be an amended resolution, and the vote was 5 to 2.
Yeah, no, 4 to 1.
No, that was on the amendment. That was
the original. You're right. 5 to 2.
The original resolution was 5.
That's right.
So it goes forward as 5-1, and then the second thing goes forward too?
No, 5 to, the first one is 5-2. This one is 4-2-1.
The amendment.
They both go forward.
Yes.
And I think we just really undone what we were trying to do in the first place. Yeah. So I'll just put that on the record.
Oh, let's move on.
Okay.
All right, I'm done. I told
okay.
Jazz I didn't say another word, so I'm done.
All right. Lisa, you want to talk about the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee resolution? Yeah, you said we were going to address that.
How do you want to address it?
Well,
they put forward a resolution. I really don't know any of the extent of the details of how they came up with the resolution. I know that I do not support the resolution at all.
I agree with you. I have gotten individual comments from committee members who were not completely on board with that resolution. And I think there was certainly a mixed vote. And I agree that I don't go along with the resolution either. The standing committee is a part of it functions under the ANC, and the ANC, they give recommendations to the ANC, but the ANC makes the decisions. And we've made the decisions today. Okay. Anything else with regard to the small area plan? Okay, we can move on to the commission business.
No, the minutes are not done for.
Yep,
April 11th.
you're forgiven.
Thanks a lot.
Any checks, John, that need to be approved? You're muted, John. John, you're muted.
Zoom reimbursement to Randy for 222.58.
Okay. You move that we approve the checks?
I move approval, yeah.
Okay. Is there a second? All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, we've got a lot of things on the possible agenda for our next meeting, and some of them will be time sensitive that we'll have to do. One is a presentation by the account manager for the Office of the Director of the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs. Another is a presentation on the District of Columbia's TIP Credit Elimination Act of 2021, which is Initiative 82 that's going to be on the ballot in June. And what we're going to endeavor to do is have someone who is both a proponent and an opponent of that so that we can hear both sides on it. We did this similarly with Initiative 77 when it came up several years ago before that vote. We still have the meeting with the Lafayette Local School Advisory Team. Michael, you tell me whether that's still on or off or when you want to have that.
Still scheduled for 25th.
23rd.
23rd.
Right. Then we've also postponed previously the discussion with DDOT regarding the traffic safety investigation process. We'll try to get that in on the 23rd. There are several liquor license renewals from Blue 44, the Parthenon, Chevy Chase Lounge, Little Beast, and Bread and Chocolate. Those should be very routine and straightforward, assuming that they haven't made any changes. And finally, I asked Brianne Dornbush, who's at least the interim director of the Chevy Chase Main Street, to come and talk about the grant opportunities that they are going to be advising businesses of. Peter? Peter, you're muted.
I just received today, but didn't read what the timetable is that the PNC Bank has been nominated for historic designation.
Okay.
Also, I've got to renew my efforts to contact the woman who's starting the new wine establishment up beyond the Citibank. I had an extraordinarily brief conversation with her 2 months ago, but I noticed there are now signs up, so I'll.
Okay. Okay. That will perhaps take a little bit longer than the routine renewal. Right. Okay, anything else for upcoming meetings? All right, well, thank you all for participating so well in this meeting and getting ready for this meeting. I appreciate it, and I think all the commissioners do. These issues are not easy, and we're being pushed from a lot of different directions, and I think we've done the best we can, which is all we can do. Okay, Connie, you copied the chat, and
I've copied the chat, but you can stop the recording. I'm going to make sure I've got the questions down. So I just need a few minutes. People can leave. I need to.